Hello everyone. In this video, we will be discussing the first part of our lesson on the basic differentiation rules. So here, we will try to illustrate the different rules or theorems on differentiation, and we will also try to apply those theorems or rules in computing the derivatives of algebraic, exponential, and trigonometric functions. But before that, let us define this term first, itong differentiation. Ano ba yung differentiation? So in mathematics, differentiation is just the process of finding the derivative or the rate of change of a certain function. Meaning, kung kinukuha mo yung derivative ng isang function, you are actually differentiating. So yan yung ibig sabihin ng differentiation. Okay? And let's recall from our previous lesson, a function f is said to be differentiable at x if this one exists. And take note, this one here is actually the definition of the derivative. To be specific, this is the alternative definition of the derivative, meaning a function is said to be differentiable if the derivative exists. And from our previous lesson, we are solving for the derivative using this definition. And take note, in applying this definition, in solving the derivative of a certain function, it will take time. Kasi kailangan pa nating i-evaluate itong limit ng expression na nandito. Okay? That's why we have this so-called differentiation rules to help us solve or compute the derivative of a certain function in much simpler way. Okay? And in this lesson, I am going to introduce the first four theorems or rules on differentiation. Okay, so to start, let us have the first one. And this is what we call the constant rule. So what does the constant rule say? So according to this rule, if f of x is equal to c, where c is a constant, then f prime of c, or the derivative of f at x, is equal to 0. In other words, the derivative of a constant function is always equal to 0. Okay? So to better understand that one, let's have the following examples. For number 1, suppose we have the function f of x equal to 1. Now take note, 1 here is a constant, right? So therefore, we can apply the constant rule. And the constant rule states that the derivative of any constant is equal to 0. Therefore, f prime of x now is equal to 0. So this is now the derivative of this function f of x equal to 1. Another one. Suppose we have f of x equal to negative 10. Again, negative 10 is a constant. Therefore, f prime of x is equal to 0. Meaning the derivative of the function f of x equal to negative 10 is equal to 0. The same with this one. Suppose we have y equal to square root of 5. So therefore, in finding the derivative, since square root of 5 is a constant again, so y prime is still a notation denoting the derivative. So the derivative of y is equal to 0. Okay? And another one, suppose we have y equal to pi. Take note, pi is a constant. It has an approximate value equal to 3.14. So therefore, since pi is a constant, the derivative of y now is equal to 0. Okay? So that is our first rule on differentiation, the constant rule. The derivative of a constant is always equal to 0. Okay, let's proceed to the second one. We have the power rule. So we need to master this one kasi kailangan natin gamitin yung power rule sa other theorems. Okay? So what does the power rule say? So ito yung power rule. If f of x is equal to x to the n, where n is any real number, then f prime of x is equal to n times x to the n minus 1. So ano bang nangyari dito? From our function x to the n, si n dito, ang ginawa niya in finding the derivative, we will just bring down n. So magiging numerical coefficient siya ngayon ng x. So as you can see here, naging numerical coefficient na si n. And we will subtract 1 from our exponent n. So it is always minus 1. So this is now our formula in finding the derivative of x to the n using the power rule. For example, suppose we have f of x equal to x. Take note x has an exponent equal to 1. So therefore, this function is of the form x to the n. And since our n is 1, we can apply the power rule. So we have f prime of x is equal to, we will just bring down 1, our exponent. So we have 1. Then we have x to the power of 1 minus 1. So we will always subtract 1 according to the rule here, right? So therefore, this will now be equal to 1, then x to the power of 0. And what is x to the 0? We know from our loss of exponent that is equal to 1. Therefore, this will become 1 times 1. And 1 times 1 is equal to 1. Therefore, the derivative of f of x equal to x is equal to 1. Okay? Now, let's have number 2. We have f of x equal to x cubed. Now, x cubed is of the form x to the power of n, where our n is equal to 3. So according to the power rule, we will just bring down 3, right? So that will become 3 times x to the power of 3, always subtract 1. And this will now be equal to 3x to the power of 2, or 3x squared. And this is now our derivative. Okay? So madali lang siya. Another one. Suppose we have y equal to square root of x. Now, in this case, we have square root of x, which is not the same as x to the n. Therefore, we need to do something to our function here in such a way na masusulat natin siya of the form x to the n. But take note, any radical expression can be written as an expression with exponent na rational number, right? Example, if you have square root of, suppose we have the nth root of x to the power of a, this is just equal to x to the n, a over n, according to the laws of exponent. Therefore, we can just rewrite square root of x as y equal to x to the power of 1 over 2. Since the exponent of x here is 1 and the index here is 2, it has an imaginary number 2 there because we have square root. So therefore, square root of x can be written as x to the 1/2. And from that, we have already written our function in the form x to the n. So we can now apply the power rule. So applying the power rule, we will now have y prime. So the derivative is equal to, we will bring down 1/2, our exponent, then copy x, then 1/2 minus 1. So from that, simplifying, y prime will now be equal to 1/2 times x. So the 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. And you can have this one as your final answer. Okay? This is also equivalent to, or we can have it as, if you want your exponent to be positive, we will just take the reciprocal of this term, x to the negative 1/2, and your exponent will become positive. So from negative 1/2, magiging positive siya. So you will have 1 over 2x to the 1/2. Or you can also rewrite it as 1 over 2 square root of x, since x to the 1/2 is square root of x. Any of these three forms, you can have that one as your answer because the three forms here are actually equivalent expressions. So magkapareho lang yan lahat. So you can choose any of these forms as your final answer. So it's up to you. Okay? the last one, we have y equal to 1 over x to the power of 4. So again, this term here or this expression here is not the same as x to the n. So we need to um, do something here. But take note, if you have x to the power of negative n, we can rewrite that one as 1 over x to the n. And since we are given with 1 over x to the power of 4, therefore you can rewrite it as y equal to x to the negative 4. So you will just take the reciprocal, then change the exponent from positive 4 to negative 4. And from that, we can now apply the power rule. Now, applying the power rule, you will have y prime is equal to, we will bring down negative 4. So you have negative 4 x to the power of negative 4 minus 1. And from that, we will now have negative 4x to the negative 5. Or you can have negative 4 over x to the power of positive 5. So we change the exponent to positive. So that's why we will bring down x. So magiging denominator na siya. And you can have this one as your final answer, any of these two. Okay? So that is our power rule. So what you're going to do, you will just bring down your n here. That will become the numerical coefficient. Then you always subtract 1 to your exponent. Okay? So that's the power rule. Next, we have the constant multiple rule. So what does this rule say? So we have if f of x is equal to k times u of x, where k is a real number and u is a differentiable function at x, then f prime of x is equal to k times u prime of x. So anong nangyari dito? If you have a constant or a numerical coefficient of a certain function or variable, in finding the derivative, you will just copy your k. So you will leave k as k. Whatever that number is, k pa rin siya or that number pa rin siya. And you will just take the derivative of the function u. So you have u prime of x here or whatever that function is. Okay, so para mas maintindihan, let's have the following examples. We have for number 1, f of x equal to 5x. So, according to the constant multiple rule, baka gagamitin nyo yung constant rule kasi magkaiba yung constant rule sa constant multiple rule. Constant rule, gagamitin nyo lang siya if constant lang talaga siya or number lang talaga. Constant multiple rule if merong kasama yung constant ninyo or yung number ninyo na variable or a function. So in this case, si 5 may kasamang x. So therefore, you can treat your 5 as your k here and si x as your u of x. So yung function nyo ngayon ay si x. Okay? And using the constant multiple rule, in finding the derivative, we will have f prime of x is equal to, si k, magiging k pa rin. So you will just copy your k, which is 5. And take the derivative of your function. U of x is x. So the derivative of x. Take note, this one denotes the derivative. Another notation for derivative. So they are just derivatives. Okay, so si f prime of x, si y prime, itong d sub x, mga derivative lang yan. Okay, then after that, we will have 5 times the derivative of x using the power rule. We have computed this one kanina, and that is equal to 1. So this will become 5 times 1, or just equal to 5. So the derivative of 5x is 5. Okay? Now, let's have number 2. We have f of x equal to 2x to the power of 4. So, applying the constant multiple rule, we will have f prime of x equal to, you will copy your numerical coefficient, which is 2. Then, take the derivative of x to the power of 4. So, this is your k. This is your u of x. Okay? And simplifying, we will have 2 times the derivative of x to the power of 4 using the power rule. We will have 2 bring down 4, so you have 4. X to the 4 minus 1. And this is now equal to 2 times 4 is 8, then x to the power of 3. And this is now your final answer. Okay? Now, for number 3, we have y equal to 4 times the cube root of x. Again, cube root of x, we cannot um, take the derivative easily. We need to change this one in the form x to the n. And we know that this one is just the same as 4x to the power of 1/3 because cube root of x is the same as x to the 1/3, right? Now, applying the constant multiple rule, we have y prime is equal to, you copy the numerical coefficient, which is 4, and take the derivative of x to the 1/3. Okay? And now, differentiating this one, we have 4 times the derivative of x to the 1/3. We will bring down 1/3. Then we have x to the 1/3 minus 1. Okay? Simplifying, you will have 4 times 1/3 is 4 over 3. Then we have x to the 1/3 minus 1 is negative 2/3. You can have this as your final answer. Okay? Another one, we have y equal to 3 over x to the power of 5. The same thing that what we did sa power rule. If you have x to the power of 5 sa denominator, pwede natin siyang ilagay sa taas, but you will change the exponent to negative or take the negative of the exponent. So you will have, this one is just the same as y equal to 3, then ilagay mo sa taas si x to the power of negative 5. Okay, according to the laws of exponents. And from that, we can now take the derivative. So we will copy 3 and take the derivative of x to the power of negative 5. And from that, you will have 3 times using the power rule. So we will bring down negative 5, then x to the negative 5 minus 1. And this is now equal to 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. Then you have x to the negative 6. You can have that one as your final answer. Okay? Now, for the last theorem that we are going to discuss for this um, part of the video, we will have the sum or difference rule. So, what does this theorem states? So we have, if f of x is equal to u of x plus or minus v of x, where u and v are differentiable functions at x, then f prime of x is equal to u prime of x plus or minus v prime of x. So anong nangyari dito? If you are going to take the derivative of u of x plus or minus v of x, ang nangyari lang is you will take the derivative of u and the derivative of v. Then, apply the operation involved. Or in other words, we can just take the derivative of every term separately. Okay? So, kunin nyo yung derivative ng first term, then plus or minus the derivative of the second term. Para mas maintindihan, let's have these examples. Number 1, we have f of x equal to 3x plus 4. So our first term is 3x and the second term is 4. So our operation is addition. So therefore, using the rule, we have f prime of x. You will take the derivative of the first term. So you have 3x and plus take the derivative of the second, which is 4. And from that, 3x, you can apply the constant multiple rule in taking the derivative. So we will now have the derivative of 3x is just, you copy 3, and the derivative of x is just 1. So we have 3 times 1, plus the derivative of 4 is, this is the derivative of a constant, which is equal to 0. So you have 0. So 3 plus 0 is equal to 3. Therefore, the derivative of 3x plus 4 is equal to 3. Okay? Now, let's have another example. Okay? So, nakita na yung pangatlo. But let's have first the second one. we have y equal to 2x cubed minus 1/3 x. So just apply the sum or difference rule. We will now have y prime equal to, you will differentiate the terms separately. So we have the derivative of 2x cubed, and we have minus the derivative of 1/3 x. So from that, we can now apply the constant multiple rule here. So you will copy 2. So 2, copy natin. Then take the derivative of x cubed. According to the power rule, we will bring down 3. Then you have x to the power of 3 minus 1, which is 2. Okay? Then minus the derivative of 1/3 x according to the constant multiple rule, you will copy 1/3, and the derivative of x is just 1. Then simplifying, you have 2 times 3 is 6, x squared minus 1/3. And this is now your final answer. Okay, so medyo madali lang siya. Now, for the last one, we have y equal to x to the negative 6x to the negative 1 plus 5x squared plus 2 cube root of x squared minus 2x plus 1. Now, ito yung maganda sa sum or difference rule. It also holds two functions with more than three terms or with three terms or more. So, meaning you can just take the derivative of every term separately pa rin. Okay? So, that is, we will now have y prime is equal to the derivative of 6x to the negative 1 plus the derivative of 5x squared plus the derivative of 2 cube root of x squared minus the derivative of 2x, then plus the derivative of 1. So there. Then after that, let's take the derivative. But before that, let us first change this 2 cube root of x squared, okay, para magamit natin yung power rule. So that will become, you just copy first. We will just take the derivative um, ng mga functions na to ng sabay. So we will have the derivative of 6x to the negative 1. You just copy derivative of 5x squared with respect to x. The derivative of, so 2 cube root of x squared. So cube root of x squared can be written as x to the 2 over 3. So therefore, this will become 2x to the 2/3, right? Then minus the derivative of 2x with respect to x, and we have the derivative of 1 with respect to x. Then after that, let us now differentiate. So the derivative of 6x to the negative 1, according to the constant multiple rule, we will copy x. Then the derivative of x to the negative 1, we bring down negative 1. Then x to the negative 1 minus 1, that will become negative 2, right? Plus the derivative of 5x squared, so you copy 5. Then x squared, the derivative of x squared, using power rule, you bring down 2. Then x to the 2 minus 1 is just 1 or just x. Okay? Plus derivative of 2x to the power of 2/3, so you bring down 2. Okay, then we have x to the 2/3, so we bring down 2/3 according to power rule. Then x to the 2/3 minus 1 is equal to negative 1/3, right? Then we have minus derivative of 2x, so that will be 2 times the derivative of x is 1. The derivative of 1 is 0. Then simplifying, we will have negative 6x to the negative 2 plus 5 times 2 is 10x plus 2 times 2/3 is 4 over 3, x to the negative 1/3. Then 2 times 1 is negative 2. Ayan. So that will be our final answer. So those are the first four theorems on differentiation. Thank you for watching.